Hola, bienvenidos a Diario de Cuba. Hoy miramos hacia Ucrania porque ha pasado ya un año desde el inicio de la guerra en ese país. Recordemos que el 24 de febrero pasado, durante la madrugada, las tropas rusas invadieron Ucrania y pusieron a las puertas de Europa la guerra nuevamente, como no se recordaba desde la crisis de los Balcanes. Estamos hablando de que se abrió una crisis geopolítica, económica, por supuesto humanitaria tremenda, miles de fallecidos, millones de desplazados. Y para hablar del tema, hoy nos acompaña el portavoz del Ministerio de Defensa de Ucrania, Yuriy Sak. Muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Sak. I really appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to ask you, after 1 year of war, what has been the impact for Ukraine?
This is a war that nobody expected to happen. This is the largest war since the Second World War. So the impact of this war on Ukraine and on the world at large, of course, is tremendous. Now, many Ukrainian cities have been destroyed. A lot of Ukrainian peaceful citizens have been killed. The damage that was done to the Ukraine's economy is absolutely staggering. But this is also a war that during the last 12 months has shown to the world that the international community, that the free nations of this world will not allow in 2023 or 2022 or in this century for this kind of aggression to go unpunished. Because from the very first day of this large-scale invasion, Ukraine was supported very seriously by our partners, by our Western allies, by countries around the world, not just in Western Europe, not just in the US. Everywhere from Japan, Australia, Canada, Latin America. So we are still standing strong. We hope to win this war this year. We are confident that we will win this war, and we are confident that the aggressor, the terrorist state Russia, will bear full responsibility for the war crimes that they have committed on our land against our people.
At what point are the peace negotiations, if this exists, with Russia right now?
There are no peace negotiations. We do not negotiate with terrorists.
No, yeah, of course, I totally understand. And what do you think about the international reaction to this war? And I don't know if you are aware of Cuba's position on the war.
Well, overall, of course, we were deeply impressed by the response of the international community. Like I said before, from the very first day, we have been supported by our partners around the world. Ukraine is receiving military support. Ukraine is receiving financial support. And Ukraine is receiving diplomatic support, because one of the important things about defeating the enemy is ensuring that Russian Federation is isolated on the international arena, because this will ensure that they have no resources to conduct new attacks. Now, unfortunately, I'm not fully aware of the diplomatic relationships between Ukraine and Cuba. But, you know, from that part of the world, you know, we've had, as Ukraine, we've had a lot of support. And I'm sure that the people of Cuba stand with Ukraine, because it's a very simple dilemma for everyone. It's a war between good and evil. It's not between Ukraine and Russia. It's not between NATO and the Soviet Empire. It's between good and evil, because the sort of things that Russians are doing are literally subhuman. And, you know, this is why I'm sure that Cuban people support Ukraine.
Of course, Cuban people are with the peace. Cuban people are with you. How is life for the civilians in Ukraine right now? How can you describe like a day in the civilians' life?
Look, we have to understand that Ukraine is a large country, and the front line, which is almost 2,000 kilometers, this is, of course, the part of Ukraine which is in the east and in the south and partly in the north. This is where life is a nightmare. People have to live under constant threat of artillery fire, aerial bombardments. So, of course, in that part of Ukraine, life is, like in a war zone. So there's always a risk to people's lives. It's not possible to live normal life there at all. In other parts of Ukraine, for example, in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, where I am, life, in a way, sometimes resembles normal life, but at the same time, every day we have air raid sirens. Every day we have the risk of another missile strike at any Ukrainian city, west, east, south, north, center. There is no part of Ukraine which is currently not threatened by Russian missile strikes. Actually, last night there was another missile attack on Ukraine, and Russians have launched 36 ballistic missiles, and we have been able to shoot down 14 of them. So in cities like Kyiv, life on some days seems normal, but on most days, when there are air raid sirens, for example, children have to, in the middle of their class, children have to quickly run to the bomb shelter because, a missile can fly into a school and there will be a disaster. So we're kind of used to it by now. And of course, I have to mention that as a result of this missile terror that Russia has launched, Ukraine is experiencing a lot of power cuts. So people have to live without electricity for very long periods of time. Every day there are electricity power cuts. So people use generators, people use torches, and but it's not an easy life. It's not, and we want to end this, and this is why we need more military support so that we can defeat the enemy on the battlefield and restore peace.
Talking about this, recently some countries, like Germany, for example, talk about sending Leopard tanks, I don't know if I'm saying correct, Leopard tanks, to Ukraine. Can this change the course of the war?
Everything that we receive from our Western partners is very efficiently used on the battlefield. And of course, the arrival to Ukraine of Western tanks, and these are not just Leopards, these are also Challenger 2 tanks from the UK, these are Abrams tanks from the US. Of course, they will be very, very important on the battlefield, and they will actually allow Ukraine to be more efficient when conducting counteroffensive operations, which are aimed at liberating our lands and deoccupying those temporarily occupied territories. But yes, indeed, right now, tanks, long-range missiles, as well as fighter jets, these are all priorities for the Ukrainian army.
After 1 year of war, Mr. Sak, what do you think are the strength and the weakness of Ukraine in this conflict?
It is very difficult for me to say what are our weaknesses because I am biased. And as far as I can see, Ukrainian people, and not just the Ukrainian army, but the whole of the Ukrainian people have shown themselves as really a heroic nation. Everybody is standing 100% behind our armed forces. Our armed forces are doing miracles on the battlefield. They are defeating what before was known as the second largest and most powerful army in the world. So our main strength has been the resilience of the Ukrainian people, in the face of terror, in the face of missile strikes, in the face of constant threat of new attacks. But we are still standing and we are determined to win. So I would say that our resilience is the key strength that helps us withstand this aggression so far.
Mr. Sak, how do you imagine this year for Ukrainian people? How do you imagine 2023 for your country?
We are all geared up for victory. We are all looking forward to Ukrainian army beating the enemy. And we all hope that the millions of refugees that were forced to leave Ukraine will be able to come home. We hope that the Ukrainian state will begin to rebuild itself, that the Ukrainian economy will be revitalized. And we hope that, this year will be the year of the restoration of peace and victory of Ukraine over the aggressor.
I really hope it. Our best wishes to Ukraine. I don't know if you want to send a message to the citizens of Ukraine around the world, for our audience, for example.
Well, I would just like to say that continue supporting Ukraine, because this is a war which Ukraine is fighting not just for our cities. We are fighting not just for our land. We are fighting for the future of the international community. We are fighting for the future freedom of the European continent and of the world at large. Because what Russia is threatening at the moment, essentially, is not just the security of the Ukrainian cities and people. Russia is threatening the whole international rules-based world order. So if Russia is allowed to act the way it does, we will end up living in a chaotic world where nobody will be safe. And this is in nobody's interest. So stand with Ukraine. Cuba is a country that can vote in the UN for the necessary resolutions. Cuba can be Ukraine's advocate on the international arena in terms of helping the international community isolate Russia. So I encourage and invite all Cuban people to stand with Ukraine, and one day we will celebrate the victory together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sak, for being with us. I really appreciate your time, and our best wishes. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.